victim to the rage of infuriated mob, fired to insane madness by the wrath of Satan. Behold the patient sufferer. Jesus, patient. How many of you are patient right now? If this was happening to you, how many of you sitting here would go and not say a word? I know I get a little pain inflicted upon me, and I don't have the really nicest things in my head, and I don't really want to be patient with the person that inflicted the pain upon me. At least not that guy, right? And here's Jesus carrying the whole weight of the sins of the world upon his shoulders. Here he is by the mortal men that he created, that he sustains in life. And what are they doing to him? They're inflicting pain and suffering upon him. Upon his head is a thorny crown. His life blood flowed from every lacerated vein. All this in consequence of sin. Nothing could have induced Christ to leave his honor and majesty in heaven and come to a sinful world to be neglected, despised, and rejected by those he came to save, and finally to suffer upon the cross. But eternal, redeeming love which will ever remain a mystery. We will never comprehend why Jesus said, okay, nail me down. For who? Me. For me. Oh, wretched man that I am. Oh, what a sinful condition I have. And yet, what did he do? And not utter one word of disdain towards anybody. Wonder, O heavens, and be astonished, O earth. Behold the oppressor and the oppressed. A vast multitude encloses the Savior of the world, mocking and jeering and mingling with coarse oaths of blasphemy. His lowly birth and his humble life are commented upon by unfeeling wretches. Oh, yeah, right. You were born to a virgin. Oh, yeah, right. They mocked him even for his birth, of which they knew that he was going to come to what? A virgin birth, right? Didn't everybody know that? Then it says, he claimed to be the Son of God. He was God, is ridiculed by the chief priests and elders, and the vulgar jests and insulting derisions are passed from lip to lip. Satan was having full control of the minds of his servants. In order to do this effectually, he commences with the chief priests and elders and imbues them with a religious frenzy. They are actuated by the same satanic spirit which moves the most vile and hardened wretches. There is a corrupt harmony in the feelings of all, from the hypocritical priests and elders down to the most debased. Christ, the precious Son of God, was led forth, and the cross was laid upon his shoulders. At every step was left blood which flows from his wounds. That means the street that he walked down, every step, you remember, you got shoes on, and you got water in them, it sloshes along. You see Jesus walking, and that blood is splashing on to the walkway where he's walking. And nobody says anything. Not one disciple. Just walked with him for 3.5 years, runs up there and says, hey, I can see your suffering, let me carry the cross. They have to pull somebody out of the crowd to do it. Somebody that didn't even claim to be one of his followers to carry his cross. And each step, you hear the blood coming out of his sandal. You hear the blood onto the street. And what does he say? Not a thing. At every step was left blood which flowed from his wounds. Thronged by an immense crowd of bitter enemies and unfeeling spectators, he is led away to the crucifixion. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. How many of you could do that? Christ felt much as a sinner will feel when the vials of God's wrath shall be poured out upon them. Black despair, like the palls of death, will gather about their guilty souls, and then they will realize to the fullest extent the sinfulness of sin. Salvation has been purchased for them by the suffering and the death of the Son of God. It might be theirs if they would accept it willingly, gladly, but none are compelled to yield obedience to the law of God. God does not come down here and say, you're going to keep my law. It will only be by the love for the Father and the love of Jesus that you will be obedient. If they refuse the heavenly benefit, if they chose the pleasure and deceitfulness of sin, they can have their choice and at the end receive their wages, which is the wrath of God and eternal death. Faith and hope tremble in the expiring agony of Christ, because God has removed the assurance he had heretofore given his beloved Son in approbation and acceptance. Think about this. Our Father is sitting there and he's removing his presence from Jesus, and Jesus feels that. Never before. He can't see through it. It says the Redeemer of the world now relies upon the evidence which he hitherto strengthened him, that his Father accepted his labor and was pleased with his work. In his dying agony, as he yields up his precious life, he has by faith alone to trust in him, whom it has ever been his joy to obey. Are you seeing yourself there? You will have to trust in the same thing, because when this earth comes to its end, which it's coming to, you are going to have to trust in Jesus complicitly and completely to make it through. He is not cheered with clear, bright rays of hope at a right hand nor on the left. All is enshrouded in oppressive gloom. Amid the awful darkness which is felt by sympathizing nature was sympathizing. Listen what it does. The Redeemer drains the mysterious cup even to its dregs. Denied even bright hope and confidence in the triumph which will be his in the future, he cries with a loud voice, Lord, into thy hands I commend my spirit. He is acquainted with the character of his Father, his justice, his mercy, and his great love. In submission, he drops into the hands of his Father. Amid the convulsions of nature are heard by the amazed spectators the dying words of the man of Calvary. Jesus did not yield up his life till he had accomplished the work which he came to do, and exclaimed with the departing breath, it is finished. We went through it in our Sabbath school lesson. I was just like, oh yes, can you see it? Can you see that Jesus is finishing his work that we might have entrance into our Father's presence? We should be so excited we can't stand ourselves. We have a way, and Jesus, he literally went to the worst death you could possibly think of, and not said a thing. And as they nailed him, there was a doctor this week that came out, because it's a Passover weekend, came out, and he said that the Romans had learned how to hit the nerve in your hand here that caused the most excruciating pain. And when they drove that spike through his wrist, his hand, however you want to explain it, he thought of you. He thought of me. And he says, I will do this gladly for Butch. If Butch wants to be in my kingdom, put your name there. If whoever you are, put your name there. If you want to be in my kingdom, I will do this for you. Amen. Amazing. Satan was defeated. He knew that his kingdom was lost. He knows he's lost. And look at how he still goes about doing what? Tempting you so that you will not be saved by your own choice. Angels rejoiced as the words were uttered in it. It is finished. Remember, they're standing at the cross. I'll see if I put it in here, but it says the great plan of redemption, which was dependent upon the death of Christ, had been thus far carried out. And there was a joy in heaven that the sons of Adam could, through a life of obedience, a life of what? Let's see if you're all awake. A life of what? Obedience. God requires obedience, even today. And the world teaches what? No matter what you do. Doesn't matter what you believe. Doesn't matter what sex you think you are. Doesn't matter any of these things. No matter what God said. Doesn't matter. God's going to save you anyway. Is that the truth? Not at all. But finally exalted to the throne of God. Oh, what love, what amazing love that brought the Son of God to earth to be made sin for us that we might be reconciled to God and elevated to a life with him in his mansions of glory. Oh, what is man that such a price should be paid for his redemption? Christ left heaven and his position as commander-in-chief and provided a perfect opportunity to have life and life more abundantly, and is available for your choosing. All you have to do is accept it. It is free at the expense of all of heaven. These words are the most assuring in all the Bible. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. And I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, there ye may be also. Recognize this one thing, that when Jesus hung on the cross, it says the sentinels of angels stood there and watched. Well, the devil told him very clearly that you are just like me. Your Father has rejected you. It brought great drops of blood from our Savior's forehead and his whole visage of life. It brought great drops of blood from his body, thinking of the frown of his Father upon him. Now, how many of you have been tempted like that? How many of you have ever been tempted to the point that the devil's standing there going, you have been rejected by your Father? Every evil angel was going by him and telling him that there was absolutely no way that his sacrifice would be good enough. And you are just like us now. And Jesus had the ability, with one look, to annihilate all of them. And he didn't do it. And it says, angels stood, the sentinels of heaven, looking at their commander-in-chief, and they stood and watched and could not say one thing or do anything to help him. That's what killed Jesus. It wasn't because of all the blood he lost. It wasn't the average person lasted on the cross for 7 days. Jesus died in 3 hours. He rested in the tomb this day 2,000 years. And he went through all of that so that you might have a home in heaven. Restored back to the personal relationship that Adam had and Eve had in the cool of the evening of every day. Amen. Restored it in such a way that you don't have to go through what he went through to get it. But he makes it readily available for every last one of us in this room. And he said, listen, in my Father's house, where are we going to live? In our Father's house. Now, Malachi 3:6 says that he can't change. Titus 1:2 says that he cannot lie. And he said if he goes, did he leave? No. What's he going to do? He's going to return. And he's going to take us home. I hope that everybody's looking forward to that. Because, we live in such a time that it is trying to be stolen from us every day. Every day this world marches forward, it is trying to tear and steal and take away your hope that that's going to happen. But Jesus said, if I go, I will come again. And we can count on that. So today, as you've listened to just a few things that I put together here, it isn't about me or about you. It is about uplifting Jesus in such a way that others would see him in you and want what you have, so that you can explain to them. Because you realize that what you explain to them here, you will be explaining to the angels there, because that's what they want to understand. Because they don't understand it. Because why? They didn't have to go through it. You will go to worlds unknown and do what? Speak to what Jesus said. Now you have the greatest privilege in all of the universe, is to live on this earth to have a story to tell to all those words. So today, as you leave here, as you go about your daily activities each week, remember, that is coming sooner than we expect. And there is a time coming that if you're not prepared, you will feel like the people at the foot of the cross, that when he said it's finished, they said or wanted, this must have been the Son of God. And they walked in fear. Now, do we fear? Do we fear God? I hope not. Not the fear of the world, which is false expectations appearing real. I hope that we live in fear of saying, oh, I love the Lord with all of my heart and with all my body and with all my soul. And one day you will hear him. If you sleep in the dust, you will hear his voice. And you'll come forth. If you're alive and well, you'll hear his voice and you'll be caught up. These are the things that I hope that you desire. And what we've read today, and the reason I brought it out is because of Passover weekend. Jesus rested in the tomb today. God, our Father's law, could not be changed even for a sinless individual. Do you think he's going to change it for the sinner? Please, today, if you don't know anything else about God, he cannot change. He requires the exact same thing. I like how Pat brought it out in the lesson this morning. He requires the exact same thing from Adam and Eve, of which he gave the redemption story to, the three angels' message. He gave it to them. It has not changed. It is exactly the same. And he requires exactly the same thing as he required from Adam and Eve today. Your choice. The third angel's message, I love it, where it says that you get to choose whether you've received the mark of the beast or you've received the mark of God. You get to choose. It's not left up to anybody else. So today, I pray that you choose Jesus, because he's all in all. Gracious Father, you have been so gracious to us in giving us Jesus, presenting a way back into your throne room and into your presence. You have presented Jesus in such a way that I know that for an eternity we will study the love of Jesus for us. How he did what he did, how he took your frown, how he bled the blood of drops of sweat, how he, without one word, spoke any discourse against us. How he did that, I don't know. But it says it will be revealed throughout eternity. We will learn more and more of it. And as we learn of it, Father, I pray that we would envelope it into our hearts, but not keep it to ourselves, but give it to others. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for all that he's done. And as we uplift him, Lord, he will draw all to himself. We ask for these things in Jesus' precious name.